DC, good morning. Glad that you're back on the regular circuit with us. If someone wants to call in, once again, 205-342-9904. DC, you're back up and at 'em with the podcast. So let's talk a little bit about what people can expect from what you're going to be diving a little deeper into. SEC Media Days have come and gone. The unofficial, official start to the college football season. What was your major takeaways, DC?
That's right. Yeah, we got SEC Media Days, but I count the start of the football season. It was a great week across the board. I think we learned a lot about different teams, and of course, I focused on Alabama. And while last week Lance was able to go, he had a media pass. We got a lot of video and pictures up on the site there, dccapstoneport.com, so everybody can check those out. But on our upcoming podcast, we're going to be looking at the review of the media days, and I just thought the three Alabama players, Tua, Jerry Jeudy, and Dylan Moses handled themselves very well. I know you were there, Martin, I think, and got to see some other players, but I really believe those three guys represented the university very, very well, very knowledgeable in what they were prepared well, very knowledgeable in what they were talking about. All of them kind of carrying the company line of Coach Saban and getting back the Alabama way, Alabama factor, and looking forward to this year. So, I'm excited to see if all our players can maintain this type of mental focus. What we can accomplish. I believe we're going to be improved over last year.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the three Alabama guys there for a second. Each one, to me, saying key elements that you want to hear from their specific player grouping. When you look at Jerry Jeudy, and one of the questions I always ask about the receivers is, how do you keep all of those guys happy? And Jeudy himself talked about the relationships they have and how they run routes for each other. And Tua also reiterated that, called them brotherhood routes. How important is that when you have four guys, and now John Mechie coming out of spring also making a case that he needs to be included in that conversation? Terrell Shavers trying to get into that conversation. How important is it to have that type of relationship, DC, for those guys?
Well, I think it's very important, and I think I've said from the very beginning on your show this year, Martin, I thought we were going to have the number one wide receiving core in the nation, and I still stand by that. Maybe he got a little stronger coming out of spring practice with John Mechie, but I really believe it can be a problem on a team where you have so many people trying to get a hold of the ball, because there's only one ball and you got 4 or 5 receivers trying to get a hold of it. But this team and these wide receivers, when I hear them talk, and I've heard them talk, and whether they're together or when they're separate, talk the same. It's a brotherhood. It's trying to help each other out, running routes, what they call brotherhood routes. And another thing I'm impressed with is, I've been going back and reviewing some of last year's games, looking at players coming up this year so I can see who's made improvements, that sort of thing. And, the blocking, the downfield blocking when one of the other wide receivers has the ball is just phenomenal when you start looking at that. I think probably the most overlooked wide receiver in that wide receiving core is Devonta Smith. He has some of the best blocking techniques and route running techniques of any receiver that Alabama has on the squad right now. I think he was the only one left off the preseason All-American team. So I think they're overlooking him.
I agree. And when you talk about that overlooking, I go ahead and kind of ask you. We'll go back to in more detail here in a second. But since we're talking about the wide receivers right now, and I look at that list of players who got recognized in terms of the wide receiver core, Jeudy, Ruggs on the first team, Jalen Waddle all-purpose and punt return. Smith kind of left out. Did he get snubbed? Is he getting overlooked? Does he play himself into potential, first, second, third team All-SEC player by the end of the season?
No, I think it definitely does. I mean, I think he's overlooked. But, it's hard to blame the media and those picking the teams because we got so many good ones to choose from Alabama. I mean, I think he ended up with what everybody on the offensive team this year selected preseason, some first-time players, starters this year. Everyone on one except the Devonta Smith and our center, I think, is the only one that didn't get picked on a preseason all SEC offensive team. So, I mean, it's hard to pick all of our own players, but this year's offensive team could be just that good. And I really believe that Devonta Smith has some qualities when a wide receiving coach is looking at them or a scout. They're going to see some qualities in him that just try to jump off the film as far as route running, hand placement, first step quickness. He's faster than he looks. I really believe that. He talks a lot about how fast he is, and when he challenges others to races and that sort of stuff. But he really is faster than he looks. And the downfield blocking to me just jumps off the page. A lot of times when those other players are scoring, such as if you look back on Josh Jacobs, or you look back at when Ruggs is going in the end zone, Judy, there's always a cleanup block, and 9 times out of 10 it's Devonta Smith when he's on the field. Yeah,
and he does have that, and he's always, to me, he's kind of big play. Was it Kevin Norwood? That was always you go a whole game and go, did he play? And then all of a sudden it's crunch time, and there was Kevin Norwood. Best example, of course, was the comeback. Alabama was struggling and against LSU down there, and AJ and Norwood made 2 or 3 spectacular plays that gave TJ Yeldon the opportunity to take that screen pass to the house. But I agree with you in terms of Devonta Smith. We're going to go ahead and get the break here. Coming back, Dylan Moses said something. Tua said something at the game. We're going to talk about at Media Days, we're going to talk about what those 2 players said as well. DC, get your thoughts on that, plus continue to see what Saban had to say, breaking down SEC Media Days on the Blitz with DC Capstone Report.
It really impacted me a lot. It left a bad taste in my mouth just because I felt like I didn't do enough. But this year, I really have the mindset that I don't want to leave the field. And that was really something that I had to deal with the entire year because, like I said, I wasn't a Mike linebacker, so it was times I had to leave the field, for the other guy to come in and take that responsibility. But now it's since now it's in my hands, it's my defense. I can run it the way I want to run it. I want it to be crisp. I want everything done the right way. I want, to never leave the field. I want guys to be able to depend on me and know that I'm someone that they could depend on. And like I said, overall, man, I'm very eager for this season to start. So
that's Dylan Moses, first team preseason all SEC middle linebacker. DC, what are your thoughts when you hear Dylan Moses? I don't want to leave the field. I want everything perfect. I want everybody in the right line. I want them to know that they can depend on me. They can lead me. I'm not saying he was saying that was not the case last year, but to me, having played the game, that sounded like a guy that wanted to do for his teammates what wasn't done for him.
Yeah, I took that to mean that he wanted to do for his teammates what he wished had been done for him last year.
Yes.
And I think that, and I'm not being derogatory toward anyone. I'm just thinking everybody does things differently.
Right.
And everybody has an expectation, and some people's expectations are higher. And I think Dylan Moses is a perfectionist. He's more like Coach Saban on the field. So I think we're going to have an upgrade at middle linebacker this year. I'm not saying that we weren't good last year. I'm just saying that I think that Dylan Moses is going to be an upgrade in that his actions speak louder than his words sometimes, and he always now is bringing those words up to match those actions. And I think Tua mentioned that when he was talking, the difference that Dylan Moses has made. So it's not just on the defensive side of the ball. Everybody on the team is taking notice of his leadership. And I think by saying that, he was putting himself out there as a leader, and he's putting target on his back for everybody else to understand, hey, I'm the guy, and you can count on me. You can depend on me. And I think he wished he'd had that last year.
Yeah, he had an opportunity to sit down with Ryan Fowler the game, DC, and Ryan asked him the question, and the Blitz listeners have heard this. I don't know if you've heard it or not, heard me make this statement, but he said to Ryan said, what's the one thing about you that you would want the rest of the world to know? Because we're always making assessments of who you are and what you do and all of these things. And his statement was simply this: I'm a leader. I lead by example, and I will go to those who are not buying in. I'm paraphrasing this part, buying in and doing what they're supposed to do. Fully indoctrinated into the Saban process, or what?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's another wish that he may have had last year. I think there were some people on defense, on offense, that weren't buying in, and then the leaders who were the leaders on offense, defense, didn't go and talk to them about it or say anything to them about it. And I think that's he's coming from a different perspective this year. Hey, we're going to get back to the Alabama way. We're going to call out those who aren't doing it, and we're going to make sure everybody is held accountable. And I think we lost a little bit of that accountability last year. And,
of course, we'll get deeper into this later as we get closer to the season. But just preseason, DC, just a yes or no, and you can elaborate a little bit if you want to, but barring any serious injury, is this defense potentially, when you look at that first 11, is this defense potentially one of Saban's more talented teams?
I think so. Definitely more talented than last year, and could possibly be one of his most talented teams. We see how the season plays out. But you got the guys coming back from last year with a lot more experience, and players like Dylan Moses in positions now to lead. That I think it's going to cause a lot of the other players to up their game. So, yeah, I would say yes.
All right. Let's jump over to the third player that went up to the SEC Media Days and see what Tua had to say. Tua was a guy that took the world by storm, and when he came in the second half of the Georgia game. And then last year, the first part of the season, took the team by storm and was able to do some special things. But down the stretch, struggled a little bit and was asked questions about himself and what he took away. When you think about the comments that Tua had to say in regards to learning from Trevor Lawrence, James, do you have that audio from Tua where he was where he was talking about the experience?
Yeah, let me get that ready.
Okay, all right. I'm DC. I want you to hear what Tua had to say when it comes to learning from that. But when you look at Tua alone, what feeling overall in general did you take away from Tua from SEC Media Days? Same kid, smarter kid, more wisdom. What do you take away from it?
I think he's a wiser kid. I think he observed and saw his mistakes. I think he's learned from them. I think he needed to step up a little bit in his leadership role, and he's identified that. I think he had the physicality. He needed to lose some weight and get in a little better shape. I think he's done that. But I think the most revealing quote that I can remember from Media Days that he said was when he said, it's a little thing. And I need to show up for breakfast. I need to show up for lunch. I need to go into the training room even when I'm not taking training and build a camaraderie with the guys. And I think you have to remember he was thrust on the scene at the last moment as the backup quarterback who wins the national championship. And he went right into the next season, the quarterback battle. But I think he wasn't that guy. That guy was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was the one that showed up for breakfast, showed up for lunch, had a great rapport with all the players, and went in the training room, checked on everybody. And I think he saw that, and he learned from that, and he realizes that a good leader has to be there for his teammates on and off the field so that they can gain trust in you and be there for you. And I think that's a small thing that he said, but something was really revealing about last year, the difference between last year and this year.
Yeah, DC, one of the things that sometimes people forget, Tua was so busy working. What I took from that statement, he was so busy working on becoming better as a player that he didn't necessarily foster the relationships, because it wasn't that he wasn't around or that he was slacking. It was just was he out there working just with the receivers? Because a quarterback can't just work with the receivers. They have to be working with the linemen. They have to be building the trust of the defense. They have to be, touching all points of the team. And I think that's what he was kind of communicating, because he's in the meeting rooms with the wide receivers, et cetera. But he misses those opportunities when you can, build those organic relationships. And that's why I think he was saying that about breakfast and about lunch, et cetera. Here's what Tua had to say at SEC Media Days. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Our team, I wouldn't say it was a loss that we were good about. It wasn't, any loss, it never feels good. But, it's just something that we can learn from, because if you keep winning, you can't really learn anything if you keep winning. But with Trevor Lawrence, I think he's done a tremendous job throughout his entire season last year. And, that was only his freshman year. So, what he's going to do this upcoming year, I hope we have the opportunity to meet up with them, probably again for a national championship or hopefully a playoff run. So,
all right. Tua, I heard a lot of people saying that Tua is making excuses, that they were delusional, that they were saying that it was good. When you hear him talk about it being good, what do you think that translates into for this team in terms of Alabama in 2019?
Well, I think he was parroting what Coach Saban always said. He coached a lot better off of a loss than he ever does off of a win, because that bad taste in your mouth goes a long way, and it's horrible. It's terrible to lose, but it can springboard you into having a better season the next year if you take it and learn from it. And I think that's what he's saying. All
right, DC, I'm about to give you a hanging Chad. And for the young folks that don't know what the hanging Chad, that's from the Gore Bush election. So I'm about to give you a hanging Chad. We're going to get a question, one question from Gregory, and we'll get the break after that. But DC, Tua, improvement. I want you to just kind of hold this, because this is not something we're going to address today, because this may be a whole show. Tua can improve. Saban has said he can improve in terms of what he's doing with the decision making. Tua let it slip up that his personality is one of those where he's going to take that chunk play if he gets it. But I'm hearing, and I've heard from a couple sources, and I want to know just yes or no at this point, and then we'll go deeper. Have you heard that Tua is not grasping the full progression read as fast and as smoothly as they had hoped?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's our hanging Chad, Alabama folks. We're gonna hold that off to a later show, but that's critical to me. That DC, that he gets that he gets that full progression read, because you cannot afford to be an RPO offense strictly when you have 4 to 5 receivers spread across the field, plus Miller Forrestall, who's the on the Mackey watch list at the tight end position. You have to be able to have full progression reads.
No doubt about that. Why would you limit yourself if you got 5 of the best wide receivers or 4 of the best wide receivers in the nation? Why would you limit yourself to 1 or 2 of them? You can't. And somebody's open in every play.
Yeah, and that's what Sarkisian's trying to teach him. I've heard that he's struggling a little bit with that. We'll see if that's corrected here in a couple of weeks. Gregory, you're in with DC. What's your question?
All right, number one, I hope to get that Martin down pat. But DC, my question to you, because me and Martin been debating about this, about our defense. Number one player, what's his name, Martin?
Dylan Moses.
Dylan Moses. Now, he go down, DC. I told Martin, we got another man can step up and can do just about the same that Dylan Moses can do. What's your opinion about that? And what's your opinion about we relied on one man in the SEC to stay healthy all the way through the season? What's your opinion about that?
Well, I think that's a tough thing to do in the SEC to rely on one man to stay healthy. If Dylan Moses stays healthy, our defense is going to be strong. But the drop off after Dylan Moses, although I think we got some great players. As freshmen or sophomores, I just think the drop off is too great to say there's not going to be a drop off in performance. I think if Dylan Moses gets hurt, there'll definitely be a drop off in our defensive performance.
How bad would that affect us, to go to the next level, to the playoff, or meet somebody like Capstone?
I think it's going to affect us in our big games against LSU and
right.
Auburn, big games.
I ain't worried about LSU. Georgia, probably somebody. See, we'll go back. We'll go back tomorrow with there.
You say Georgia? I'm not sold on Georgia this year.
All right.
I mean, that remains.
You're not?
No, Gregory, I told you. Hey, Gregory, we got to get the break with Gregory. Gregory, I told you, you the one that's convinced that Kirby's the second coming of Saban. All right, Gregory.
It got to be.
All right, roll tide. Thanks, Gregory. All right, DC, coming back on the other side, we'll get to a couple of those SEC predictions, and I'll let you tell our listeners what you got coming up on DC Capstone Report, as that podcast will be up later. All right, this is The Blitz on Tide 102.9 and 100.9. Well, welcome back in. We're speaking to DC Capstone Report. DCCapstoneReport.com is where you can find them. DC, rapid fire for you. When you look at the SEC predictions from the teams finishing, agree, disagree, Alabama, Georgia taking their respective divisions, Alabama, Georgia meeting in the championship game, and Alabama taking the win.
I think Alabama is going to win the West. I think Georgia has a chance to not win the East. But taking the smart move is to bet on Georgia, and Alabama will beat Georgia in the championship game. However, my upset pick will be October the 5th when Georgia has to go to Tennessee after a week off after playing Notre Dame, and I really think Tennessee's going to be improved this year. If there's a game that I think Jerry Pruitt would want to win, that would definitely be the game. And
plus, he also has a little inside scoop from the way things are done over there at Georgia with the recent hire of his OC. So that'll be interesting. You and Virgil Williams both picking Tennessee to upset Georgia. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. When you look at the guys who made it from Alabama and who didn't make it, which guy do you feel was most snubbed? Smith, McKinney, Lewis, Surtain Jr., or you may have someone else?
I think Devonta Smith was the most snubbed. I mean, no doubt about it. I think he caught the winning touchdown pass for the national championship. That he's always shows up in every game, blocks downfield greatly. Probably going to be a great pro route receiver running routes. So I think, no doubt about it, Devonta Smith was overlooked.
Does Terrell Lewis make it from third team to first or second team this season?
He does if he stays healthy.
Yeah. If he stays. And what about Surtain Jr.? Will Surtain Jr. or Xavier McKinney, Trayvon Diggs, which guy's going to be the top dog in that secondary?
I think Xavier McKinney. I've been rewatching some games. He has a really good game. The upside to him is really good. Shyheim Carter. I think Trayvon Diggs. Those three are going to be your up guys. I look for Surtain to struggle a little bit. I think he'll have a little slump here this year, but I still think he's going to be good.
When you look at Nick Saban and Clemson, is he over the loss, or is he still making excuses, or are those valid reasons to help motivate his team?
I don't think he's making excuses. I still think he's talking to his team about trying to get that loss out of the head. I think it's hard for him to get over it. He knows it's hard for the team, and he's going to try to use it as a motivating factor instead of a distraction.
Which rivalry ends first, DC? Which matchup ends first? Georgia versus Alabama, Alabama versus Clemson. Which one will we not see first?
I'd say Georgia versus Alabama.
So you're picking Alabama and Clemson in the national championship game?
or in the college football.
Or at least in the college football playoffs, based on how the ratings go. All right, which Alabama player? I know you're breaking down the defensive line on DC on the Capstone report. Give us a highlight of what you're going to be talking about there.
We're going to talk about Raekwon Davis coming back and have an opportunity to really make a difference this year. He's playing for a team, but he's also playing for his personal self in the NFL. And I think this is the year that he has the shining year to be a great player. I think LeBron Ray steps up this year and really makes a difference. And I look for DJ Dale to come along and really shore up that middle. So those are the three that I'm looking for having big years on defensive line.
You referenced coaching changes. Give us a highlight of what you're going to be talking about there. You're saying this year, even though it's a lot of change as last year, something's different about this year's coaching staff and coaching changes.
Yeah, I think we took a little bit of what Coach Saban said and included the context. He said that he was talking about coaches who were looking to go to head coaches and distracted in the last days of the season there. And you look at this team, the way he built this coaching team, this leadership team here. He's got some guys that are on there that probably looking for head coaching jobs, like Banks and Wiggins and Baker. But man, he came in there with some older guys like Sal Sunseri. You got Charles Kelly. I got Kyle Flood, Sarkisian, who's all those have been head coaches, been in the NFL. So you got a good core group of guys that are maybe not looking to the next level, may stay for a while, and you got a group that's looking at the next level. That's a better mix than he had last year, and I think that subtly, I didn't see it at the time, but now coupled with what he said about coaches looking ahead and being distracted, I think he's built the leadership team here that's more focused on this team and not focused on the next step.
Yeah, I think several people misunderstood, thought he was just talking about an immediate head coaching job in Loxley, but I think he was talking about even the young and up-and-comers looking for that future head coaching job versus being content with where they were at. That's DC Capstone Report. When is that podcast going to be up?
It'll be up later on this evening, and you'll be able to catch it tomorrow. DCCapstoneReport.com. Check us out on our Facebook page, DC Capstone Report. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at DavidCott50. That's DavidCott50.
All right. That's DC Capstone Report. Joins us every Tuesday from 6:15 till 7 o'clock. Thanks, DC. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Martin. Have a great day.